We're talking about travel. It can be really stressful these days, and it can bring out the worst in people, and it's especially difficult to mind your manners during a long flight. Emily, post-trained expert Courtney Fadler, is back, and she's taking on the biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to air travel. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is really timely for me because I'm going on a flight today, this afternoon.
Perfect.
So help me out. Can I bring some food on the plane?
My
My biggest concern.
I love it. I love talking about airplane travel and airplane etiquette because who of us hasn't had an interesting experience on a plane? It always happens. And food always seems to be like a #1 topic of everyone. So in short, the #1 answer to this is yes, of course you can bring food on the plane these days. We all have long flights and often over lunch or dinner, but with a huge caveat. Obviously, the #1 rule of etiquette is being considerate. So when you think about what you might eat on the plane, it's probably best to think about maybe a turkey sandwich versus a tuna salad sandwich. Or maybe think about Subway versus Chipotle on the plane. I love Chipotle, but just maybe not on the plane.
Okay, so what happens if you're sitting next to somebody, those are close quarters, and they're eating something that stinks? What do you do?
I know, this always happens too, right? I mean, I think we've all had this happen to us. So the best rule of thumb there is, I know you're gonna wanna maybe kind of lean away or do something like this. The best rule of thumb is do your best not to make that person feel self-conscious or uncomfortable about the food that they're eating. Because we're all gonna go through those situations every now and then. The best thing to do would be just to kind of maybe find your own way to tune it out. So maybe you put on your headphones and you dive into your book and don't worry about it. But what you could do is once they're finished eating that, you could offer to give that trash to the flight attendant, or maybe
give them some gum.
Or do that. Or make an excuse to go to the restroom and take their trash with you and dispose of it. So that way maybe that'll help get that smell out of it.
Okay, what about the armrest? There's always that struggle. You always feel like, do I have it? Do you get it? Who gets it?
Right, who gets the armrest? So the rule of thumb here is typically the seat that no one really wants is the middle seat, right? Everybody's looking for their aisle or their window. So the polite thing to do is give the person in the middle both of those middle armrests. They get claim to that. That's sort of the benefit, yes, of the middle ones.
Whoa.
But then the aisle person, they get their outer armrest, and then the window person gets the armrest there. That doesn't always happen, but that is the best rule of thumb.
What if it's a two-seater?
If it's a two-seater?
Who gets that middle one?
It's a great question.
It's typically arm wrestle for it.
Yeah, it's typically whoever sits down first gets it. Or you can actually, I've heard somebody say to me recently that they like to talk to the person next. Go figure, they talk to the person next to them, and they both coordinate. Would it be all right if I put my hand back here if you have yours up there? And they literally share the armrest. So that's how they work it.
Speaking of talking, is it acceptable to be talking on your phone at all, let alone hands-free?
Right. I was on a flight recently where I sat down and the person next to me was not only talking on their phone, but talking like on their hands-free, like Bluetooth. So it was very loud and not actually into the phone.
Yikes.
And I kind of felt like I was completely brought into their conversation as well. So #1 rule of thumb, if you're that person, if you're going to make a phone call and you're on the plane and we haven't departed yet, make it brief and keep your voice to a minimum when you're doing it. I think a lot of times people get on the phone and they're not aware of how loud they are when they're talking. If you're the person next to them and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this person's talking so loud, and maybe you have a baby and it's trying to sleep, or maybe you're just trying to get some work done, don't interrupt their conversation per se, but wait until they've finished that phone call, and then if it seems like they're about to pick it up again, you might mention really politely, oh, if you're about to get on the phone again, would you just mind keeping your voice down just a little bit? I've got a baby sleeping right here, or whatever the case may be. And typically people are, oh, I'm sorry, they didn't know they were so loud.
Okay, give us your #1, your best etiquette rule for air travel.
Yeah, I love this. People always feel like they somehow have to diffuse the situation, whatever it might be. But your best tool are the flight attendants. So don't worry, don't hesitate to pull them aside or discreetly ask them if they might help you. If there's a passenger next to you who's doing some things that you just don't want to have to interact with, go ask the flight attendant. They are trained and are so efficient at handling that, usually with grace and politeness too.
I love that. Usually I just pretend like I'm sleeping. All right, Courtney, thank you so much. Some great tips.